Hello, I'm Chris, the Tabletop Fox, and welcome to my video on Halo Flashpoint, particularly the UNSC faction and reviewing their units and how they are in Season 1. In this video I'm going to be looking at the Mark VII and both his variants. So the Mark VII has been a tremendous standout unit, both in Season 0 and still now in Season 1. With Season 0 seeing it as the hammer boy running around just smashing everything and pinning everything up with its MA40, where when killing wasn't as powerful as a tool, and pinning up the enemy was amazing, and being able to knock them off the objectives, off the hill, it was a very good combo, and there was a reason it was seen a lot in the top competitive lists, including my own. So going into Season 1, we still have an incredible unit here, as mentioned. He's a very versatile unit, which is one of the main selling points for me of the unit, is that ability to just work in almost any situation. Its ability to shoot, melee, it's got that tankiness of a normal Spartan, which is pretty decent with the 2 armor, the 2 shields and 4 HP. The 5-up save is the mediocre part, but it seems to be the tendent standard of normal units in Flashpoint, with only a few being worse and a decent few having some better saves. Alongside his general good stat line, he comes with Tactician, which is an incredible resource in the game, letting you choose extra things to do with the units. And that can be incredibly strong, especially an extra shoot, an extra move, and it can be a game changer, a round changer I should say. The only issue really with the Mark VII is going into Season 1, lethality is key. And when it comes to his base weapons, neither are that lethal. One is a bit more lethal than the other, where the other gains in utility, but neither is quite going to set the world on fire. He does get some lethality from throwing a knife on him, and that is generally a good idea, and I feel running a Mark VII without a knife is generally a bad idea, because that flexibility you get where you can scare the opponent into coming close to you because your melee is actually pretty lethal is a great tool, and that also helps with clearing hills, especially when you cannot get onto them without killing the opponent, and the only way you can get to kill them is with melee, because you don't have the actions, like in Extraction for example, where if you moved and shot you wouldn't be able to do the extraction arming or disarming. Well, if you can run straight in with a short action and melee them and kill them, you can do the action still, and this is where melee is very incredibly strong in the game right now. And again, it goes back to the Mark VII. His ability to do both is what makes him such a standout unit. So we'll touch on the weapons. We've got the MA40. It's the standout from last season, and it still is a very strong unit. The unit itself is incredibly strong. And we'll touch on the weakness first. The reason I don't see it being played as much is it went up in cost a decent bit. It got expensive. It's 45 points now without a knife, 48 points with a knife, and that's a lot when you have comparisons of other units. You have the Brawler, which you could take a extra command dice per round and still be on a similar points basis when adding the knife to it, and it's better at melee, though it is worse at shooting, so it's a bit more specialised, the Brawler. And then when we go over to it, the Pulse Card by Mark VII, which is so much cheaper, at 5 points cheaper, and it just lets you do a lot more with him. Especially, as I mentioned, Mark VIIs really want a pickup weapon added to them. So, touching back into the MA41, it is one of the best, and I believe, in truth, the best pinning weapon in the game, at least for the UNSC. Range 4, 2 rerolls with a 4-up on the shoot. You're not going to fail to pin much unless the dice really don't go in your favour. And that is really useful still to this day. It's not as useful because killing is a beneficial thing, but if you want to pin up a annoying ODST who just spent all his spanker shots on you, you can do that and just keep them from coming back with more. And that still has its play. The MA40 though does not have much lethality. It can if you get lucky, because you've got no optics, you get only crits on 8s. You also mean you only get the 3 base dice, so it's going to be working on getting clear shots, height and such. And the 2 rerolls are there, but again, you're not rolling that many dice, so you may not even use both the rerolls being on a 4-up. So it's generally not the strongest choice there. However, like Season 0, in Season 1, the Mark 7 with the MA40 is very good with a hammer, and the hammer is still a very good weapon. It's still lethal, it's still good at clearing off objectives. It's only really gone down in explementations because of the fact that killing is more of a thing now, and that means being able to shoot well as well on a Mark 7 has gone up, and that is the reason why you don't really see the hammer Mark 7s as much. Add to that, you a lot of time will see people running brawlers with the hammer, and it's more, the brawler has a better chance of actually killing with the hammer, but it does have some negatives that it doesn't have, that Mark 7 has, so the versatility. But then if you've only got the MA40 as a gun, your 4-up to shoot isn't as good as if you had a lethal gun. However, it's still an incredible unit. Run it with gravity hammer or combat knife even. You can go combat knife and just have no other weapons on it and fine weapons. It will still do some work because it can pin up, and then it can also go in and melee stuff, and it will find a weapon. It's just not reliable on what weapon it's going to be and whether it's going to be a good one for you. Running with a grapple is always recommended. It's a movement-loving unit. It wants to get onto the objective, so having that extra movement with a grapple is big, especially since it's got a good pinning weapon. So you can pin them up and then grapple in for the charge to get that extra dice and to avoid snapshot. You then tie that with, well, either a thruster, an active camera, or quantum. Now, the reason for this is a thruster is just extra movement. Thrusters I do have a love-hate relationship with, because the fact you can never use a thruster on a respawn, and with this being such a killy time, there's a lot more chance that most of the time you are respawning, you could get killed every round, and then your thruster outside of turn 1 is pretty much pointless. Active camera, on the other hand, is incredibly good because off a respawn you can come in, do your thing, pop active camo, hold on to that tack, not die, and then be in position to do more maybe the next turn. And if you don't want to pop it because you dying might actually be not the worst thing for you, such as distraction or King of the Hill, you can just choose not to pop it. But it works off the respawn, so it's a really useful tool. And then the quantum, while it did get nerfed, it still has a load of strength to it. That being that with a hammer, it still has its same strength. Now that is because a hammer has knockback, you can pop the quantum, grapple in, hit them, pop them back into the cube that you had the quantum in. When you go back, you will instantly charge them. Now, you won't get the benefit of charge dice, so you will be going in with 4 dice because of the hammer smash, or 5 if you did actually manage to wound them, but that can be massive. Alternatively, you can knock them into a wall with a hammer, quantum back out, and then use an advanced dice, because assuming you've already used up your grapple, to go back in and hit them again with a full charge. So quantum is really good with a hammer. It still has objective play because you just have to be within 2, so you could plant it, sprint 3 to a flag that is 3 away, and grapple back 1, and then you've moved 4, but you've come back within 2 of the quantum and teleport back to the quantum. So it's pretty much, the quantum is like a thruster in some ways, except for it has a 2 boost to your movement as long as you're coming back the way you came. So it's more movement than a thruster in some cases, but it's very specific where you use it. But the ability to use it off a respawn as well, you wouldn't use it as you respawn, but if you say well, if you say they were on the extraction point and you came in, put your quantum down, grappled in, hit them, you didn't kill them, probably more of a knife. If you've got a hammer, you're knocking them out anyway, and then you advance die back into them. Or in King of the Hill, they're right in the corner, you come in, one away from them, on the hill though, put your quantum down, grapple into that corner, hammer them to where your quantum was, if they don't die, and then teleport back your quantum, hammer them again, if they don't die, knock them out of the hill, and you've got the hill. It's a really strong combo. So it's an interesting unit to run. It's still got strength. However, it's gone down in the estimations because of the little brother, the Pulse Carbine, which I'll get onto now. The Pulse Carbine Mark VII is incredible. Its base weapon, not so much. So its base weapon, it's AP1, ESD1, weight of fire 1. No optics or anything, no utility like pinning or knockback. It's just a generally solid base weapon, but doesn't have anything special to it. It will do well at killing an ODST, and it can do some damage if you get a clear shot with some height. It can actually be a really good weapon in those situations. However, my personal opinion, I don't like being in a position where I have to find a perfect position to be able to use a weapon well, because then it limits my freedom of where I go to be able to do what I need to do. And that's a massive thing for me, is being able to have that freedom to say, I want to be here because of setting up for next turn, but I do want to also shoot you and do some work into you. And that's where stuff like any gun that's for killing that doesn't have optics doesn't work well in my own thought process, unless it's incredibly strong where it doesn't really need that bonus. But even stuff like the shotguns can have that struggle because they are still rolling not that many dice, and if you're rolling against an elite, for say, you're rolling 4s, they're rolling 4s, there's a very good chance that you tie because you're equal dice. However, the big thing with this Pulse Carbine boy is he's cheap. 5 points cheaper than the MA40 version, and because of that, instead of running stuff like hammer, you're putting a gun on him, like a BR, a Covenant Carbine, or Fuel Rod. And these are all weapons I tend to run on them depending on which game modes are coming up. The BR lets you have that pinning, which is nearly as good as the MA40's pinning with an extra range, but then adds in the incredible lethality. The Covenant Carbine gives you that knockback and really good lethality. And the Fuel Rod is just a menace, where it's can be more lethal, it can be less lethal, because it is a bit of a risk then, because you only have 5 dice and you're on 4 up, so it's the same as your normal shoot, but you don't get the crit 7s with that. But if the enemy's using camo, if there's mobile enemies in the cube, it's just very good. And the fact that it can knock them off places, it can pin them up, it's just a really good weapon as well to use. And this has become one of my staples at the moment for running in lists. Just because of that, I don't put a melee weapon on, I just put the combat knife on, and that does plenty. It's just then you've got this threat that can do anything. They can't go, oh, I've pinned him up so he can't do anything because he can't shoot and move onto the objective. Oh, he'll just move onto the objective and melee you and still do a good job. And so with this one, it's the same kind of loadout in the way of items, grapple, and then either a thrust or active camo. Don't tend to use the quantum, as said, because that's more towards a hammer user, or particularly for certain modes if there was a lot of flag capture modes. But I tend to go more with active camo at the moment, just because of what I mentioned about the thruster, and especially on some of the lists I've been running, active camo can just be incredible, because also you can guide it into making the enemy shoot what you want shot and making it hard for them to shoot what you don't want shot. And I use this with, say, like running Buck, where if I have camo on all my guys, they either shoot Buck and get the easier kill, or they aren't getting kill points really that round. And so it's a really good use of all item for that exact thing. And with that, it's they're both solid units. Both can be incredibly useful for you. It very much depends on what you're going to do with them. I would say MA40 is purely if you want to go a heavy melee with him, and if you want a more shooting balanced platform, you go with a pulse carbine, just because of how much cheaper it is. And yeah, they are a solid unit, very good for new players and old players, top players. You can't very easily go wrong with a Mark 7, and that is one of the strongest parts about it. But I hope you enjoyed this video on the Mark 7. If there's anything you believe I missed or anything you have other thoughts on about it, please do let me know. But in the meantime, I've been the Tabletop Fox, and have a lovely day.